Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Shadow, bringing you guys a different type of video, honestly. I am here with Boring Peanut.
Hey, what's going on?
So, over Twitter today, I've noticed a lot of people talking about potential bans since Worlds is coming up, and Worlds is when they announced the bans last year for, I believe, Sakazuki and Reject, if I'm not mistaken, right, Peanut?
Uh, yeah, it was Sakazuki, Reject, and I feel like I'm missing one, but maybe I'm wrong. No, Ennie's Lobby was later, I think.
Yeah, that was in Lucci format.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is a breakdown of the flagships in the East. So you see Blackbeard is starting to dominate the meta, overtaking Doflamingo now. And I feel like this got a lot to do with people finally figuring out how to actually pilot Blackbeard with the new support that the deck actually has.
Yeah, that the new support is like again, it's exactly what Blackbeard needed. Liberation, just to be able to swing, get your opponent's tempo off, and then the Kuzan just being able to cycle, which is what Blackbeard wants to do, and be able to choose any option out of your trash that you need at that very moment. So it really gave it the tools it needed, but yeah, piloting Blackbeard, I knew it was going to take quite a while for people to figure out, and it has gained a lot more traction in the East when it didn't before.
Yeah, and obviously we still have Doflamingo, and of course it's still gonna rain. It's very consistent as a deck, and much less, I don't think it will ever pretty much go away as far as with its consistency. Especially having, obviously, we know Jinbei to be able to play out a body, even if you get it off leader swing, you're playing out two with a big swing, and obviously Bounce Law to be able to take the pressure off of yourself.
Yeah, Doflamingo, it feels like a very power creep to, nowadays, and like it's almost like how Zoro was back in like OPO2. Obviously, there was Whitebeard, so that was a big issue, but that's how Zoro felt against a lot of decks when, it was just constantly putting characters on the board, and the opponent, just didn't have the firepower to keep up.
Yeah, and then now people are talking about potential bans within these two decks, and I'm gonna show a Twitter post. Found it from this other guy, Kyo, but essentially he agrees with what I'm about to say. But the original post, essentially, they're personal bans of what they think should be banned or restricted, and obviously the first one being Burgess. Essentially, he's saying that Burgess is abnormal performance and has a KO resistance. Essentially, it's a Burgess deck. Google Translate is not the best.
Yeah, it's gonna be rough translations, but we can kind of figure out what he's saying here, and it does make sense. Like, if you're not like a blue deck that can just remove it off the field, like that thing isn't going away unless Blackbeard chooses to swing with it. Now you can trash it, but if you let that Burgess climb, I mean, your ways of trashing it are even more limited since Ben Beckman is only up to a 7K.
Yeah, and I personally don't think this card needs a ban. I think this is basically Blackbeard's only win condition. 10 drops can stall a game out and obviously negate leaders' abilities like Enel and Nami, but Burgess is what you want to establish to go for lethal gameplay, obviously beefing it up. And banning this card essentially kills Blackbeard as a whole, I would say, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so like without your on-play effects like his black, you're actually spending quite a bit of Dawn, with your Blackbeard cards to do what another black deck could do for a lot cheaper or for bigger combo plays. So Burgess is basically acting as like, you're playing so much on curve as Blackbeard and losing card advantage with your ability that's basically acting as like any of your other decks. You'd be attaching Dawn. It's kind of similar, but I do understand once that thing climbs to like 9, 10k, like that's just an issue for basically every deck. But like Shadow said, like 10 drop isn't your win condition. That's just how you stall out. 2 Burgesses on the field is how you win.
Yeah, and honestly, in this 09 format that we are in the West, like, it doesn't pose much of a problem in my eyes. And also, honestly, in 10, a lot of decks, especially like yellow, are getting these activate main cards that can rest Burgess, which allows you to swing big into Burgess. So there are ways around Burgess. It just, again, depends on the pilot of the Blackbeard player, and I guess comes down to what you see that can help you utilize to be able to rest the Burgess.
Yeah, because like as an NL player, like Burgess is, yes, Blackbeard is just naturally amazing into NL, but if he has the Burgesses, that's basically when I lose. I can kind of work around a deal and like slow the game down if I really want to, but those Burgesses just sitting there, like, there's no way I'm getting rid of them unless I'm teching in a card. And that, what was that one, was it the Lucy card?
Yeah, Lucy.
Yeah, but it was such a terrible tech because it doesn't have counter, which you already don't have a lot of counter. It's a 6 cost, which you could say is okay, but I'd rather have next set, the Hawkins, that's a 2k, and be able to rest, 4 cost. Like, that's so much better in that deck.
You also get the X-Drake as well. I think it's the X-Drake you're talking about.
That's what I mean. Yeah, not Hawkins, X-Drake. Yeah.
And then this, rest this character, rest one of your other ones if the number of life cards is less than or equal to the opponent.
And it's great because if they don't KO it with an effect and they're swinging at it, that keeps like 1 card in my hand or whatever the case is.
Yeah. So honestly, I've seen a lot of talk, and instead of Burgess, there is this Kuzan, which is what is bringing a lot more consistency to Blackbeard in 10, which this character cannot be removed from the field by any effect. So you can't trash this card, you can't KO the card, you can only knock it out, which comes back to that X-Drake, allowing you to rest this and swing big at it before Blackbeard can actually utilize the trash this, draw 1, bring back a 5 cost from the trash.
Yeah, and this is the just can't be removed by effects, I think is disgusting in this sort of deck. Obviously, they're going to use the Kuzan effect. That's the main point. It's a 5 for 5. But, like, blue, you can't gravity blade it. You can't trash it. Like, what? That's one of the main problems I have with it, is that they can let it sit and then they can use it whenever they want. That's just staying on the board.
Yeah, that's true. And this is why, if we're talking about something to ban in Blackbeard, it would be leaning more toward this Kuzan than it would be Burgess.
Well, it makes the consistency of the Burgess so much. You're going to get your Burgess out.
Correct. And that's why I'm saying if it's between the two, Burgess is what should not be banned. It's got to stay. And Kuzan would possibly be up to the chopping block at that.
Yeah. That's where I stand too. But in the end, I still don't think like anything needs to be banned from Blackbeard. It's just a really good deck.
Absolutely. I think it's got to be... I personally want everything to stay. I'm even down for Sakazuki to come back into the meta, especially since Blackbeard can check Sak.
It can check it, but I mean, how much would there really be to cook with at this point? I'm sure there's something. Someone would make something gross with it.
You got Hound Blazes and you got Ice Age, which is the other card this person was talking about. So back to the Twitter post, he doesn't say we should outright ban it, but we should limit it. Talking about it is a 1 cost -5, which allows a lot of cards to be removed from play when you utilize it in a black deck, and it has an amazing trigger of KO a 3 cost when you get it out of life.
So speaking of like this person is saying limit it, I think this is a card that if you limit it, it's a 1 of. There's no 2 of, because like a lot of decks, like they either play like they'll play down the 2 Ice Ages because it's just an option. Like, if you limit it, it just has to be 1. But honestly, this is a card that it does not need to be banned right now or anything like that. But coming from other TCGs, like, this effect is so simple, so cheap. It has a trigger that, like, can just be annoying. Like, it's not like it's amazing trigger, but it's still something. It's too generic. It's too good. Eventually, it needs to go, most likely. But again, that's just for like the future. But right now, I mean, it's fine. It's okay.
I personally don't think it should. I mean, you know, I mainly play black, and losing Great Eruption, which was the other card that got banned with Reject and Sokka.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Your only pretty much other reduction card you were using, especially since it replaced itself with a -2. This is doing a -5, but it's not replacing itself like Great Eruption did. And other than that, you don't really have much other reduction cards. I mean, you have Soap Sheep, but a lot of this meta is really gearing towards top end cards, especially in EVO2 when you're gonna get the 10 Rushanel, and you're coming to Law and OP10, and that secret or the Eustace Kid in yellow as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm not saying. Like, I don't think it even needs to be limited right now. Like, I think it's fine as of right now. I think it's just more like in the future, because right now it's either like you are getting that like higher body, and again, Great Eruption was so good because -2 was awesome and it replaced itself. This like -5, depending what you're doing, you could just be going like overkill on the minus with it.
Yeah. And that's why I agree. So I personally think it shouldn't be touched, in my opinion.
Yeah, but my argument was more just like, if they don't rotate, like, it could become a very obnoxious card like a couple years down the road.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if there's like another, like, even more powerful, like, double pop cards, that could be annoying.
Oh, yeah. And on to the last card of this Twitter user was Bounce Law. And this is pertaining to Dofi, and his reasoning was, it is no good if you are 4 below and can revive yourself and you are not breathing. Again, Google translation is not the best, but you can give yourself breathing room as Dofi when your opponent is swinging at you pretty consistent and flooding the board like Zoro would. You can swing big, play out this law, bring yourself a 2k back to your own hand, and bounce one of those characters back to their hand, taking that pressure off.
Yeah, and the way that this law is coming down, I mean, either off your ability, off of a Jinbei, which is just a free card. There's so much value that comes out of this, and even depending on your matchup, like, Dofi might choose to just bounce 2 of their own characters back. Like, that could also be like 4k counter that they're looking for. Yeah. There's too much versatility, but I don't know. You go ahead. What are you going to say?
I've definitely done that as a Dofi player, since that is probably the other deck I have played that's not black. And in a pinch, I have bounced back, you know, the Buggy that is on the field, or Sengoku to get another search in on top of just establishing this law. So there is that. I have bounced a character from my field and bounced law as well to get myself a counter and have that law in my hand so that I can go for lethal, which is his other reason. Because I would establish a 2-cost teach, put the law on top, swing, play the law, bounce the law. Especially if they play 2 4-cost blockers, I'll play the law first, bounce itself, bounce the blocker, use teach, put it on the top, swing, establish it again the second time in a turn, and get rid of it one more time. You can essentially play this card 3 times in one turn if you have it in hand with teach on the board, which is absolutely crazy, taking off that pressure.
Yeah, and one of the disgusting things about this card, I think at the end of the day, relieving the pressure off yourself, like, I guess this also goes into my next point. Like, Dofi was kind of balanced in a way that the characters are coming out rested on his swing, so you can have a chance to just swing into it. this law puts so many cards back into your hand, like with the Sengoku, replaying it multiple times, getting your 2Ks, your stackers back to hand, that like Dofi's hand, it feels like it takes forever to whittle that thing down. Even like when I'm playing Bonnie into it, it's like, how does this guy still have 7 cards in hand?
Yeah, but going to that point of the characters coming in rested, that is where it begs to differ if Jinbei should even be looked at for a ban. Since Jinbei, if he comes out rested off your leader ability, he can also play out an active character onto the field.
Yes, which you can do with Law, too.
It floods the board, way more consistency of putting the pressure on your opponent. And
yeah.
I personally, as much of a consistent and aggressive as Dofi is, I don't think either of them need to be banned because, again, both of these cards are also utilized in Boa. Boa focuses, his whole ability is on bouncing and drawing, which is essentially what Law does. And you're just trying to ban these cards to hit Dofi, and you're gonna hit Boa in the crossfire as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't love using that as a discussion point. I get it though, because I still break out my Boa like every once in a while. But it's just like, again, there's no like tier 0, like this is the only deck you should be playing. If you're not playing this, like what are you doing? Because again, like Blackbeard's an option. There's other decks, like I've beaten so many Dofis. Like I don't sit across from a Dofi and be like, oh man, well I lost. Like even with Ploofy, like yeah, it's a hard matchup, but you know, it's not like impossible to win. It's, I don't know. I don't think there's any need for any bans, any limitations right now. Honestly, I think this is like one of the healthiest like this game has been. And not even taking, you know, and I have like nostalgia, even though it's only like 2 years of this game's lifespan. I have other more favorite formats, but like it's healthy. I mean, like how many leaders were on that flagship board? If you could go back, there's like 16. It's insane.
It is crazy, and then it beckons that question of should Moria be banned, which is one card that is always consistently I've seen talk about banning because of how great it is that Black can utilize it, being able to bring back, you know, a 4 cost and a 2 cost, and playing out Rebecca grabbing something else and playing out another body, you know, flooding the board with 4 while establishing Moria. But going back to this flagship, you don't really see any Black decks topping that utilize Moria like that.
Yeah, because even like Usopp, like I've been testing Usopp, and it is kind of like divided, but I see less people use the Moria because it just doesn't feel like the deck even needs it. Like the 7 cost Rebecca is actually like I think more useful in that deck than Moria is. It just is. It's searchable, like you're getting the +1, like you need the consistency in that deck, and honestly just having that Gecko, like I don't know, I feel like it's almost useless.
Yeah, and the main decks that utilize Gecko, being Lucci and BY, each have 5 right at the bottom, right next to an L. None of them have that.
I mean, that's just the lineup of being checked by Blackbeard.
Yep. That like, definitely is right there.
Yeah, I think that's right now it feels like, because ever since you know, me and you saw like the big influx of people for like 04 and 05, tons of people came in then, so then that first Worlds, like obviously there was a lot of big reactions. It made sense for a lot of those bands. I've talked to a lot of people at some of these like events that they just came in like during like 07. So this is kind of like their first time. They're having like some of their leaders and like what they're used to like really shift in the meta. And I think some people like they feel a shift in the meta and they automatically go like, well, that needs to be banned then because I can't play my favorite deck of Bonnie, and that's my favorite deck, but I'm realistic.
It's like when red ran supreme, Whitebeard everywhere.
Yeah, and like even when I was playing Bonnie against like Black Luchis, I wasn't like complaining and just giving up and calling for like bans left and right. So I was like, "This is what it is. I guess I'll just try and get a better win rate against Lucci." And overall, I did pretty well against Lucci, like me as a player.
Yeah, it's just the consistency of learning the matchups and playing around the stuff you're not wanting to see, honestly.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. I don't think there was any other cards we could like think of. But the one question I want to ask you: if there was going to be a ban, what do you see being banned? Like just one card. What do you think would be the most realistic choice if they did ban one?
Realistically, and then we're looking at the East format.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would have to say if you want to hit some of the bigger main decks, if you're looking at Blackbeard, it would have to be that Kuzan, as much as I don't want it to be banned. It gives it so much more consistency, and Blackbeard can play without that Kuzan. Obviously, in 09, we're using Laboons in place currently and other cards because we get Liberation, and Kuzan essentially replaces the Laboon in the deck for me right now, and Liberation will replace Tempest Kicks. But it honestly, I could see it being Dofi with how consistent it's been for the last 2 to 3 formats, I believe. And I could see it potentially being Jinbei to Law, like the guy was saying, but I honestly don't think it should, because there are ways to control it, as there is Black, or to play around it. And again, how you said you play Plouffe, I've lost a Plouffe as Dofi because they are able to stabilize after all the aggression that I do, starving me as a Dofi player.
Yeah, as I'm not like some like great player or anything, but I try to stay like as up to date and compete meta wise as best as I can, even though I bring jank every once in a while. Like, I change my decks and learn to like go against them, even instead of just automatically going, well, this is a lost battle. When Shadow won the New Year's event, I was the Satanel that had to face him. But like, even though I joked about it, like I still tried my best to win. It's just I couldn't. It was what it was. I didn't just forfeit.
What do you think should be banned? Or what do you think will, if there is a potential ban?
I'm gonna have to say there isn't, because right now, if you're looking at just Blackbeard and Dofi, you take Law away, that makes the Blackbeard matchup easier. You take something away from Blackbeard, it makes Dofi matchup a little bit easier. So those are just the two big dogs, the giants right now. You just have to let them be where they're at. Like, sadly, that's how you have to consider bans in a card game.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I say I don't think there shouldn't be any.
No.
That's pretty much the discussion for today, which are the bands that this guy considered and have heard people talk about at locals. But yeah, if you guys liked the video, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, like the video, comment down below anything that you guys think that should be banned, or what are your inputs on the cards that we talked about today, whether you think they should be banned or they should not be banned,
or if there's any other like topics you want us to discuss. We're open to it.
Yeah, we're down for the discussions, testing this video out to see how it is received and see what else you guys want us to talk about. But without further ado, we'll catch you guys in the next one.